I did a series entitled A Portrait of Excellence. And today I want to do a portion of the first part of that study. And I want us to go to the book of Philippians, the first chapter. And I'm reading the 9th and the 10th verses. Now hear what it says in Philippians, the first chapter, verse 9 and 10. And this I pray, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and in all judgment, that you may approve things that are excellent, that you may be sincere and without offense till the day of Christ. Now we understand that Paul is referring to what is called excellence. Excellence. Having an excellent lifestyle. Now, there are different people who have different concepts of what excellence is about. But as far as we are concerned, we're thinking of excellence from the standpoint of creating a successful life in the here and the now. Now, whatever we do now is actually a preparation for heaven. Now, many people have the belief that we will live in heaven forever. I wish to disagree with them because I do believe that we're coming back to the earth and we're going to live in the earth or on the earth. The Bible says the meek shall inherit the earth. Now, when we think of excellence, we're thinking of excellence from more than one standpoint. And I want to define excellence as the state or mindset of excelling, the state or mindset of excelling. It is a trait exemplified in the lives of those that are progressive. So excellence is a progressive trait. If you want to excel, then there must be the mindset for getting to your next level. One of the definitions of excellence is that excellence is a lifestyle that represents a steady pace towards that which is on a higher plane. Now, when we excel, we are moving beyond where we are. We are going beyond where we are. Now, Paul says that we must excel, that we must approve things that are excellent. Now we have to come to the point of recognizing what is excellent and what is not excellent. Now, if you don't know what is excellent, then how will you also know what is not excellent? There must be a differentiation between the excellent and that which is not excellent. Now, if we're going to excel or have an excellent life, then we must know that there are requirements for excellence. Excellence always demands a foundation. Now, you see, if you're building a house, one of the most important aspects of that house is what is called a foundation. The strength of the foundation determines the strength of the building. Now, a weak foundation implies a weak building. Now, Jesus himself gave us a pattern. He says that the wise man builds his house on the rock. And when the storms of life, speaking of the difficulties, the hardships of life, the struggles of life, when they come along, they beat at that house, but the house remains strong. Then he says that the foolish person builds his house upon the sand. And when the winds, the storms of life comes along and beats on the house collapses. Now, if we are going to excel, we must have a foundation. There must be a foundation for excellence. Now, there must be a reason as why you want to excel. Now, it is sad that many people desire to excel in life because of selfish motives. They want to excel because of selfish motives. Success to many is defined as having a big house, having a big car, beautiful car, having expensive clothes. To some, it is even defined as having a big bank account. That's what success to many people is. But that is only material success. That is not true success. True success is a wholeness of life, having a whole life, being whole mentally, being whole spiritually, being whole physically, and of course, being whole financially. Because someone says, I was once broke and now I'm rich, and being rich is better than being broke. So all facets of life put together, success is a complete pattern for living. Now, there must be a reason as to why we desire to excel. Excellence always requires a goal or a target. Now, the goal or the target that you have in life will determine whether or not you will reach where you want to reach in life. Now, someone may have a goal in life. He may have a target in life, but he has to pursue in order to reach that goal or that target in life. Let's say a person wants a job. He has to pursue that. He has to make applications. He has to go after the job as far as the physical is concerned. Of course, prayer will be an important aspect of that. He first prays, then from there he puts things into action, pursuing a goal, pursuing a dream. Now, to be satisfied with where you are is complacency. If you are ever satisfied with where you are in life, it actually means that your life is a complacent life. Or literally, we could say that your life is non-progressive. Now, every person in life that excels has a goal, he has a target, he knows where he is going. There is a beginning point that moves progressively towards that finishing point. Now, how do you get to that goal? Number one, you have to make a plan. You have to plan how to get to that goal. You see, the plan is, when it is implemented, is that which pushes you towards the fulfillment of that goal or that desire that you have in life. Now listen to this. Excellence is always requires a purpose. Now we define the word purpose as the intent for which something exists. The intent for which something exists. Now, if you are going to excel in life, there must be a God-given purpose to your life and to that which you desire to excel in life. There must be a motivation for one to excel. If there is no motivation as to why you want to excel in life, then you will never excel. You'll never excel. Now, you see, many people have the concept, they have the belief that whatever God desires, that's what is going to happen. So they need not do anything in life. All they need to do is possibly pray, and then God, in some sweet way, will do what he needs to do. But there must be a motivation in your life. If there is no motivation, then 6 months down the road, you'll be right where you are. A year down the road, you'll be right where you are. Even maybe 5 years down the road, you'll be right where you are. There must be a spiritual motivation. There must be a mental motivation. There must be physical motivation. But remember, you are not just struggling in the natural. Because anything that is done in the natural without the help of God results in a struggle. God must be first. In every attempt, in everything that you do in life, God must back what you're doing. Now, when we look at the text we have read from the book of Philippians, Paul actually gives us a clear-cut picture of where we should be going. He's not talking about finances. He's not talking about houses. He's not talking about properties. He's not talking about cars. He's not talking about clothing. what he's referring to is something more dynamic than all these things put together. He's talking about developing a lifestyle that is conducive to the blessings, the successes, the victories of God, and the promotion of life. Now, if you notice, the first thing he speaks about that we should excel in is in love. He says that we may abound more and more in love. Now, the word abound, it means to go over and above every limit that has been set. To go over and above every limit that has been set. Now, when we abound, it means that we break every given limit. Now, he's saying that we should excel in love. Now, the love he's speaking about is not the love that many people talk about, which is actually an artificial love. The love that embraces you today but betrays you tomorrow. The love that says, oh, you're wonderful, and then it says behind you, you're ugly. Not the kind of love. Not the artificial, not the pseudo type of love. What Paul is referring to is real love. And what is real love? Real love is God's love. It is the word in the Greek, which is the word agapeo, or the word agape. And you see, there are different kinds of love in the Greek. One of the love is philalial love. Now, philalial love is actually a mutual love. It is a friendship love. Then there is eros love, which is a sexual love, that somebody says, I love you, because now they just want to go to bed. That's eros love. We're not talking about that love. We're not even talking about philalial love. Although filial love has its manifestation through the agape love, which is the God kind of love. We're talking about the love that is described in 1 Corinthians 13 that says that this love bears up under everything and anything that comes without weakening. That's the kind of love we're talking about. It is the love that is described there in that chapter as the love that is able to believe the best of every person. Now, how do you look at a person, even when you know the worst about them? How do you view them? Can you truly love a person even when you know the worst about them? Now, it is this kind of love that actually creates an influence in life. You will never be influential until you have this kind of love. Now, I'm not talking about the influential that many people think of. When they think of you being influential, they think of you having a big name somewhere. But it could be a big and ugly name. It could be a big and derogatory name, because there are many people with big names, but their names are not good. It could be a big and dishonest name. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the influence to the point that you affect the life of someone positively. That's what we're talking about. Now, when we think of love, love is that which energizes faith. Love energizes faith. Now, love is the mother of faith. In Galatians, the 6th chapter, it tells us that faith operates or works by love. So, the energy of faith is based on love. Now, why is it like that? Because God is love. Whatever God does is always based on love. The very act of creation, the formation of things, was based on the love of God. God had a love for the world, and that's why he created. Now, not only did God have a love for the world, God had first the intention of man being on the earth. And that's why God says that the earth should not remain without someone taking care of it. On the 6th day, he created man in order to fulfill a God-given function. Everything that God saw, it originated based on a love in the heart of God. Now, God has a heart. That's why he has a heart for humanity. Whatever God does is first based on love. Now think of it. There are times that we do things that is not based on love. There are times that we do things, as I said before, that is based on selfish motive. What can I get? What is in this for me? Most times in life is like a business contract. What can I get out of this? We do something for someone expecting the person to repay us. And Jesus said in the book of Luke 6 that if you do something expecting to be repaid from the person you have done it to, you have already received your reward here on earth. He said you've already got what you bargained for. But the love we're talking about is the God kind of love that enables you to help somebody without expecting to be repaid. It is not the kind of love that you love today to get a benefit tomorrow. No. It is a love that is a pure love. A love that is a pure love. Now, this kind of love does not require works. It is based on a divine release. Now, in Ephesians, the 2nd chapter, and verse 8, it says, "For by grace are we saved through faith. Not of yourself, it's a gift of God. Not of works, lest any man should boast." Now let me ask you a question. How much work would you have to do? How much would you have to accomplish in order for God to love you? Ephesians 2 tells us that even when we were dead in our trespasses and sin, even when we were without Christ, we were the worst sinners. At least there are people who have never been the worst sinners. There are people who believe that they are always good. I was always a good person. There was no person that was always good. We were all born in sin and shapen in iniquity. And so no matter how good you look on the outside, how wonderful you smell, you said, "I've never smoked, I've never drank, I've never gone to parties, I've never done that." That is not what constitutes a good Christian. Not drinking, not going to party. These are all maybe aspects of life. But a person, even though they have never drunk, they have never smoked, they have never gone to party, they have never done what is considered the gross evils of this life, every person was born a sinner. You may have been born to the best family, but still you were born a sinner. You may have been born in an affluent aspect of life or maybe family, but you're still born a sinner. And so the love of God is that which draws us to him. That's why there is no person who could be so good enough to qualify for salvation. Every person was once a sinner. And so here we notice that God's love is a function of his grace. It is what we refer to as unconditional love, a love that does not have a condition. Now, in most cases in life, you see, our love is conditional. We do this for this person based on what will happen afterwards. If I do this, this will happen. If I do the other will happen. But God's love is unconditional. It's not a love based on our goodness, but it's a love based on his goodness. Now, we have been given the nature of God. As a believer, we have the nature of God. So we have the capacity to love. Not with our own love, not the love that loves today and is angry tomorrow, but with the God kind of love. Romans 5:5 says that hope does not delude us. It doesn't make us ashamed, because the love of God is shed abroad in our hearts by the Holy Spirit. So we have that love within us. We have the capacity to love. We can love the unlovable. We can love the ugly. We can love the person that has a very negative attitude. We can love the person that is rude. We can love the person that is arrogant. We can love the person that is prideful. We can love the person that is slanderous. And do you know that there are many times in life that people slander us, and the first thing that comes to our mind in the natural is to resent that person, to retaliate, to be angry, to kick the cat, and do all other things that we can possibly do in our power. But that's the natural side of man. But the God side says, no, you have the capacity to return the best. It says that love is not arrogant. Love is not inflated with pride. That kind of love we're talking about is a love that goes beyond tribal barriers. Now, it's sad to say that many people in our society, they are tribalist. They have this concept that if you're not from my tribe, then you're not good. When I first came to Uganda, I was indoctrinated, I should say, by certain people that was directly around me. And they used to tell me that this tribe is like this, and this tribe is like this, and this tribe is like that. Sometimes they'll say that this tribe is a money-loving tribe. The other time they'll say that this tribe is a deceitful tribe. They're tricky, you cannot trust them. So for a while I go around looking at people based on their tribe. But after 18 years in this country, I've come to learn that there are good and bad among every people. There is no such a tribe that everything is perfect about them. Why? Because every person has human fallacies. You have to understand that no person is perfect. Even within the church, among those that are called born again, we are not perfect. Now, we are pilgrims to perfection. Sometimes we see newspaper writings and they give us the concept that once you're born again, you're supposed to be perfect in all aspects. And some born-again believers portray themselves like that, only to discover that behind the scenes they're actually hypocrites. We're talking about the realities of life. And so we have to learn to accept people not based on the color of their skin, or based on their tribe, or based on their background. Because to me, I believe that we are all God's creation. We're all God's creation. I am not prejudiced against any person based on their background or their religion. Sometimes we accuse people based on what they believe. A person has right to his belief until he discovers otherwise. You see, until he discovers a greater revelation or greater light, he has a right to that belief. And I would like to believe that every person is going to be born again, but it's not possible. Not every person will be born again. What we have to do is to bring forth love, is to show the love of God, and to affect people's life positively. Do you realize that you can learn something from others that you do not believe alike? There are things that you can learn from others, but when we are prejudiced in our belief, we cannot learn from others because we actually create barriers in life. And God does not want us to be barrier builders. He wants us to be barrier breakers. Now look at Jesus. Jesus associated with everybody. He went into the house of the Pharisees. He ate with them. And that's why there are certain groups among them. Certain of the Pharisees, they said that Jesus was a wine bibber. They called him the prince of the devil. Why do you associate with such people? Now look at how Jesus embraced the very woman that was caught in the act of adultery. Jesus released her not only of her sin, but of her guilt. And oftentimes we hold people to their sins and we hold them to their guilt because of how we see them. Now, can you imagine a person who may be doing worse than what another person is doing is critical of that person? What we need to realize is that love has the power to lift people from where they are And that's the message of the gospel. A lifting message. Come on, give him praise. Now, God's response of love towards us should therefore create a similar response to others. Because you only give that which has been placed within you. Love is a very powerful force. The operation of divine love is based on knowledge. You see, it is knowledge that gives us access into what is ours. Paul says that we may increase or abound in knowledge. The more you know about God and implement what you know, is the closer you become to God. Now, the Bible reveals the ideas of God. It reveals the thoughts of God. It reveals the plans of God. It reveals the purposes of God. It reveals the very intent of God for your life. So your association with the Word is your association with God. The Bible not only reveals the thoughts and ideas and plans of God, but the Bible reveals what is called the will of God. Now, what is the will of God? The will of God is God's direction for your life, what God intends your life to be like. Now, God intends your life to be a life of love. He tells us that we must forgive. Now, you see, forgiveness is not an easy thing. It is progressive. Forgiveness is progressive. You may forgive instantaneously, but it is a progressive action. What do I mean by that? Have you ever forgiven someone, but every time you remember the incident, it's painful? Has it ever happened to anyone here? Yes. And there are even those today that are right here and those watching by television, that there are people in your life that every time you have a memory of that person, there is pain. And that pain is not necessarily physical pain. It is what is called emotional pain. Now, that emotional pain is that which affects the life of an individual, bringing them to the place of slavery. Do you realize that you can be enslaved by another person because of what you think about that person? Every time you think negatively of that person, you're actually holding yourself in bondage to that individual. Now, Jesus gave us a principle in the book of Matthew 5. Jesus said that we must make peace with our adversary. He says, agree quickly with your adversary while you're on the way, lest you be handed over to an officer, and the officer hands you over to the judge, and the judge sentences you. What was he saying? He's saying that when you allow anger to govern your life, it will lead you to a place that it will enslave you. It was the great American civil rights activist, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who made the statement. He says, I will never allow a person to bring me so low to the point of hating him. Do you know that you become a slave when you hate someone? You're actually a slave. You go around life or through life thinking about the person negatively. And so you become a victim of life. I will never allow anyone to bring me so low as to hate them. Now, my life has been a very controversial life in this country for years. They have written all kinds of things about me. I could have been the most bitter person in life. But what have I chosen to do? To forgive. I've chosen to live my life, to go on with my life, and to forgive. Because I realize that if I refuse to forgive, I'm a dead man walking around. Unforgiveness holds you in bondage. Every person has a right to believe what they want to believe about you. I read a book some years ago written by a dynamic motivator woman in the United States. And the book is entitled, What You Think of Me Is None of My Business. Not what you think of me is none of your business. What you think of me is none of my business. Now, what you have to understand is that once unforgiveness holds you and it captivates you, it enslaves you. Do you realize that we spend more time thinking about our enemies than we do about our friends? Do you stop to think that you spend more time thinking about the person who have hurt you than the person who have helped you? And that is an enslaving force. Love cannot manifest itself. Now, the knowledge of God releases us that all men are subject to mistakes, that there are no perfect people in our world. They may wear the most expensive dress or the most expensive suit, drive the most expensive car, wear the most expensive colognes or perfumes. But still, deep within, there are weaknesses. So when somebody hurts you, realize that that person is subjected to mistakes. Why am I saying what I'm saying? Now, what you need to realize is that God has placed you in a place for a purpose. Now, knowledge is powerful. The quest for knowledge exposes us to the plans, purposes, and direction of God for our lives. The more you know and utilize what you know is the more empowered you become. The current of a favorable future is based on your ability to access knowledge. Knowledge. Knowledge is what you need. Knowledge about your future, not about your past. Because your past is past tense. And that's why negative people will always remind us of where we came from. They will always remind us of how we fall. They will always remind us of our weaknesses. They will bring us back and show us a picture of our yesterday. But God always shows us a picture of our tomorrow. God takes us from the past and he projects us into the future. That's why God never has to consult your past to determine your future. If God was to look at your past to determine what would happen in your future, many of you would have had 0 grades for your future. But thank God, he looks at us through his eyes, not through our eyes or not through human eyes, not through the scrutiny of natural human beings. Now listen to this. The knowledge of God, when appropriated, leads us to a lifestyle of peace. Now, peace is one of the most essential assets in life. Now, I call it an asset. Why do I call it an asset? Because it is something that when you possess it, it enhances your life. Now think of a person living in a beautiful house. And so, peace, when it is not present, that what is called a beautiful physical structure becomes a chaotic zone. That's why there are people with beautiful houses, and you'll say, I want to have a beautiful house like such and such a person. But you don't actually know what transpires within that beautiful house. Sometimes there's hell on the inside of that beautiful house. Now what needs to be understood, it is not the size of a house that matters, but what transpires within that house that matters. A person may have a beautiful house, they may have a beautiful car, they may have natural possessions, but they don't have peace, and their whole life is turbulent. Turbulent. Peace is very important because peace always provides us with the necessary assets we need. Peace is the guiding force of our destiny. Any pursuit not accompanied by peace results in a struggle. Now, Jesus said in John 16:33, he says, in this world that you live, you will have tribulation. He warned us ahead of time. Now, tribulation is distress, anxieties, frustration, turbulences. They are the troubles that we face on a daily basis. In this world, he says, you're going to face these things. You can't run away from it. Issues like global warming is a part of our life. Wars, contentions. You know, we look around us, the high price of food today, and someone says, what are we going to do? You either have to have faith and confidence in God that you'll be able to continue eating what you used to eat, or maybe you just choose not to believe God and you'll just be like the other people, you'll go without, or maybe you even choose to die. You see, because dead people don't eat. Dead people never have to worry about food. But once you're going to be a living person, there's going to be tribulation. But in that verse in John 16:33, he says, but be of good cheer. He says, cheer up. Cheer up. Because in me you shall have peace. Now you need to understand that as long as your focus is on things, life will be turbulent. Because you may think about school fees for this term. But what about the next term? You're going to still think about the same school fee. You pray to God today and you ask him to solve a problem today, and the problem is solved. But what about tomorrow? There'll be another problem that will come along. So as long as you're alive, there are going to be issues that are going to be turbulent in life. Now notice this, that any blessing not accompanied by peace always results in frustration. Proverbs 10:22 says that it's the blessings of the Lord that maketh rich and adds no sorrow with it. Now anything that comes into your life that frustrates you, that was supposed to be a blessing and it frustrates you, you know that that thing is not from God. Oftentimes we struggle to receive the things that ends up becoming a frustration to us. We pray for things only to get them. God gave them to us. It was not his will. But you can force God into giving you things. And you receive them. And what happens? At the end of the day, your life is turbulent. When God gives you something, it is a blessing for life. You remember the story of Abraham and his housemaid Hagar? Now look at what happened. Sarah, she thought she was helping God. She says, I'm too old now. God gave you that promise. As a matter of fact, when the angel spoke to her that you're going to have a child, she laughed. Now, any person at 90 years old who has never had a child and is barren, if an angel came and said you're going to have a child, you may think that it's a miracle. But when you think of your husband who is about 100 years old, then you will say that this is impossible. So she decided, why don't you, Abraham, have an affair with, the house girl, at least a partial affair, not a full one. She got pregnant. And the very thing that Sarah wanted to happen, when the child was born and the child started to grow up, she became frustrated. She saw someone as a bondmaid who was actually teasing her by this child that was supposed to be the child of promise but was not. And so we find out in life that when we try to help God to bring about something, we end up becoming frustrated in our efforts. Frustrated in our efforts. Now let me say to you that every success that is a premature success will end up frustrating you. Anything that comes before the time will frustrate you. Or something that was not intended and it comes into your life, it will frustrate you. We must excel in the knowledge of God in order to attain peace. When you excel in the knowledge of God, then you attain peace. Now, listen to this. Peace is not the absence of trouble or circumstances. It is divine serenity in the midst of opposing circumstances and the challenges of life. Now, someone says that if I didn't have any trouble, then everything will be okay. If all my problems were solved, then everything would be okay. It would not be okay. Because, when everything is going well for us, we have a feeling that, my God, things are going so great. Maybe something wrong or something bad is about to happen. Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever felt that, things are going so good? Around the corner, around the bend, something is going to turn around negatively. That's a concept that many people have in their minds. You can be at peace even when trouble is at your doorstep. You can be at peace even when things are coming against you in a negative way. You can be at peace because peace is not outward, it's inward. Paul told us in the book of Philippians chapter 4 and verse 6. He says, don't worry or have anxiety about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which passes all human understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Can you ask me, have you ever been at the place where things have not been peaceful in your mind and in your life? Of course. The times are too many. But what do I choose to do? I choose not to be a victim of those moments. I choose not to be a victim of those situations. I also choose not to allow other people to become frustrating elements of my life. I choose. I choose to maintain my sanity. I choose to maintain my dignity. I choose to maintain my honor. Because what a person thinks and says about you is not what matters. It's what you think and say about yourself that matters. And so you can be peaceful when negative things are transpiring in your life. True peace is the freedom from the outer assaults, the outer pressures, moral conflicts, and agitating passions. True peace is divine peace. It is what is called tranquility. Peace is an inner tranquility that cannot be disturbed by the outer disruptions or interruptions of life. Now, that is what we call divine peace. It says, seek to excel in peace. Excel in love, excel in the knowledge of God, and excel in peace. Peace is not more money in your bank account. Peace is not more expensive clothes. Peace is not a bigger house. Because sometimes you get a bigger house, there's more problems. You should not be disturbed by outer situation. Peace creates versatility within us. With peace, we can adapt to the situations of life without being mastered by them. Peace causes us to be versatile. Wherever you are in life, you can become a person of peace. There's so many today in Uganda who would believe only if I had the opportunity to leave Uganda, then my life would be more peaceful. I meet them in the UK. I look at them, and it is as though they have never left Africa. You can see the tension and the depression. I spoke to a certain gentleman from Uganda when I was in the UK recently. And he said to me that, Pastor, life is so difficult in the UK. I said, but yet there are many Ugandans who are doing everything in their power. Some has even gone as far as to falsify bank statements and all kinds of things, dubious things, to leave the country. He says that life is absolutely depressing. I said, why would you say it like that? He says that you work, and when you work, you end up paying the bills, and the money you have worked for, you don't see it. There are times we are not grateful for where we are because we have not been exposed to other places. Sometimes the kind of life that people have to live in order to end up doing something substantially back home is terrible. But life is by choice. Everybody has a choice. That's why a person can prosper wherever they are is based on their mindset. Do you realize that there is no lack of money in our country? It's only the lack of ideas and the implementation of good ideas. There's no lack of money. Because there are people today who started at zero and today they have risen to the top. So what you need to realize is that God has a perfect plan for your life. In order to be a partaker of the divine nature of God, your perception of God should always be one of Him being a peacemaker. You will never make peace until you know God, who is the peacemaker. Blessed are the peacemakers, Jesus said in Matthew 5, for they shall be called the children of God. We are designed to be mediators of peace. We should not live our life and die as troublemakers. I've made a decision that I'm not going to fight with anyone. You fight with me. You fight with words. You fight with whatever. I'm not going to fight with you. At the end of the day, you cannot continue fighting somebody who is not fighting. The only fight I'll fight is the good fight of faith. And when you fight the good fight of faith, you win. And you win all the time. When you fight the good fight of faith, it is a fight of victory. And you see, God always wins. God wins over opposition. God wins over difficulties. God wins over every situation in life. You can become a person of excellence. You can become a person of love. You can become a person of knowledge. And you can become a person of peace.
Thank you for joining us for today's special edition of Sights and Sounds of Hope. You are closer to your potential now than ever before. Keep connecting with Sights and Sounds of Hope to unlock your potential for divine destiny sooner than later. For this and other editions of Sights and Sounds of Hope, contact us using one or more of the following channels. Visit us online at www.abundantlifefaithcenter.org, your one-stop center for higher hope. Sign up and follow us on social media via our WhatsApp channel at ALFC Family Network and on X at ALFC_Uganda. When in need for a friend indeed, write to us for prayer agreement and testimony celebration at prayer@abundantlifefaithcenter.org. If you are ever within the Greater Kampala metropolitan area, make plans to join us in person for our service on Sunday at 10 a.m. and Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. at our home grounds on Segeko Hill, overlooking the Roofings Factory in Lubua. You'll forever be grateful for your decision to do so. Always remember, you are not alone. We are here to walk with you in faith every step of the way. Until next time, keep believing, keep growing, and keep living the abundant life in Christ.